It's another one of those cold, snowy mornings that I drug my feet in the house waiting for it to get up into the teens before I headed up into the shop. It's up to about 20 degrees in here now, so I thought we would try and do something today. Won't be a very ambitious project. Matter of fact, I think I'm just going to look at making some rosettes. Now, rosettes are a way to take an ordinary rivet and make it really decorative, and it's like a big decorative washer. These are going to start off as 1/2 inch thick. I have a couple that are 1 3/4 square pieces. So that's about 13 millimeters thick by 45 millimeters square. And then a piece that's about 13 millimeters thick by 45 millimeters round. And I'm just going to make some simple rosettes, and maybe in a future project we'll actually use these for something. I'll keep them around. Nice to have on hand. And we're going to use very basic tools for these. Besides forge, hammer, and anvil, we'll use a straight chisel, a hand set. However, a set hammer used under the treadle hammer or with a striker would work very well. Probably be a little bit faster. And then I just have a square punch that I'm going to use. Each of these will be a little bit different, but I'm just going to use those 3 tools as my tools to do the decorative forging. This first one, we'll start with the hand set here. We're just going to drive the corners down at 45 degrees. I'm going to work each corner to keep things going evenly and hopefully keep things lined up. I think with this set tool, a smaller starting material might have been better. This would look better done with a bigger set hammer. But since I started it this way, if I change and go to a big hammer that goes all the way across here, I'm going to end up with a little shoulder where I started, or a cold shut, or whatever you want to call it across here, that would show and would look bad in the finished piece. I want to reduce this to about half of its original thickness. It's a hard thing to hold on to. A hold fast works, but not as well as you might like, so it's sometimes just easier to trap it between the tool and the anvil. You see this starts to deform a little bit on the outside and makes kind of a rounded lobe, a little bit flower-like. This just takes a little bit of time. There's certainly nothing magical about my starting point. It's just the material that I had on hand. Make the rosette suit the project that it's going to go on. Well, I've got a shoulder established there. I can draw this out a little bit at the anvil. This goes a lot faster. Yep. Typically I do it all with a set hammer or some sort of a set tool, but I'm doing it under the treadle hammer, so I don't resort to this, but that actually worked pretty well. So that's interesting, but it's not complete, at least not in my eye. I think it needs a little bit more. And I was going to just do a simple cross line here, but because I ended up with a flat in between each of these, I think I'm going to do parallel lines. And hopefully this comes out well. It's one of these things I'm kind of making up as I go along here just to see what we end up with. I'll deepen these lines in another heat. And as always, I'll try and give you a close-up of these at the last 30 seconds of the video or so. Now you have a choice here of punching a hole in the middle or drilling. Now it just depends on what you really want in your end product, but because I've got this little square island right there, I don't think this would look very good or would drill very successfully. So I'm going to go ahead and punch it, I think. But you can get an idea what the rosette's going to look like. So I guess I lied earlier. We're going to use 4 tools because we're using a punch. I don't want to scar this up over the pritchel hole, so that's why I started the back there. Now I'll finish the hole this way. So there's rosette number 1. Make sure it kind of sits flat. Let's go to the round piece here. And using the same technique, we're going to pull something out this way. Try to make sure that the corner is pointed right towards the center of the stock there. It doesn't hurt to tip this in a little bit and kind of establish a point. Just like that first one, we're going to work incrementally around the circle here. Now I can go centered here, which will give me a very similar effect to that last one. think that's what I'm going to do. You can try and pull out 6 of them, but I think I'm just going to do 4 on this. Of course, as I think about it, it's cooling off quite a bit. You do these, they start to kind of dish up in the back, which makes them even weirder to try and keep put on the anvil. And this one, there's no convenient way to hold it with tongs and work it between hammer and anvil like I did those little pull-outs on the other one. So just do the best you can. Yeah, I think for the sake of efficiency and time, let's go ahead and see what this does under the treadle hammer. Persistence at the anvil will pay off. But we can do it a little bit quicker at the treadle hammer. My little X in the middle is a little bit off here. I don't really like taking that extra step, but I think it will show less to correct this line than it will to have a little lip down in there, I hope. So that's a lot faster than doing that all at the anvil. Another advantage of using a treadle hammer or a power hammer or press when you do these experimental things is sometimes you take them a little further. So I'm going to take a bite out about halfway and repeat this element. I don't know if I'd do this if I was working by hand. So we're just going to do the exact same thing to all 4 of them again. These little triangular pull-outs, or whatever you want to call them, Can be used a lot of other places. I've done this on the corner of back plates for chest handles and things. Looks good on the end of a bar, like the cross arms of a cross or something like that. And like the first one, I'm going to put a chisel line in here. This time it's just going to be one though. Try and get it centered. Like anything, the more of these you make, the better you'll get at it. I suppose we'll go ahead and punch a hole in this one too. We go right at the center of the X. X marks the spot. And again, I don't want to scar this up over the Pritchell hole. I think I've upset the end of my punch a little bit. So I'm going to flip it over this way and shear that slug out. This one's kind of funky. It's a little off center. Just one advantage to drilling. It's easier to get things right where you want them. But you get the idea of what we're doing here. Let's go to this other piece of square. For this, I'm going to start with a square punch. I'm going to come in from the corners. I'm sure you can think of other things besides just decorative rosettes for rivet heads. We're not going to punch all the way through, although I suppose you could if you wanted to. Once you get a good mark in there, it's a whole lot easier to work on this. It probably doesn't hurt to rotate your punch every now and then, just in case it's not symmetrical, and that way you'll kind of even out the impression. So if I just turn that as I work, that kind of helps even everything out. And the deeper you go with this square punch, the softer the edges will become, the more this will push out at the sides of it. And it looks more organic, and I think that's kind of what you want. I don't think you want this too rigidly square, but if you do, then you could use a sharper edged punch or something. or not go so deep. But I like the more organic look myself. This center is a lot thinner. It'll be a lot harder to chisel down. And you don't have to chisel down it. That's just kind of going for different approaches with similar tools and ideas here, just to see what the variations might be. Yeah, got that off. It's a little hard to fix when you do that, so this one may be just kind of cut up looking there. I actually really kind of like the way this one is cupping up on the corners, so I'm not going to flatten it, but I'll go ahead and punch through from this side, and I'll either punch all the way through or I'll punch most of the way through and then finish it with a drill bit. And ground that little bit of mushrooming that was holding up the punch off of there. I think we'll just finish that with a drill. Now sometimes doing just a little bit of filing on these things can really make the difference between them being kind of ho-hum and really interesting. I think this one, where we pulled the round bar into what is now essentially a square rosette, is just kind of funky enough that I don't think I'm going to do anything to it. It's interesting and I like the concept, but I'm not sure if I would use this the way it came out. We'll see. It may find a place in a future project. This one, where we pulled the corners out of the square bar, I think would look good if we continued this curve into here with a big round file. And I think that looks a lot better. Now this one, I think would look good if this chisel cut was continued around the side, so there's a little V-notch in the side, and you could probably do it with a chisel. Speaking of hot, it's still a little bit hot to touch, but I think just filing it in will be fairly quick and efficient. I think that looks a lot better. Well, that's just a quick look at some rosettes. These are largely experimental. Try a few things, see what you like, then refine the technique to get it just the way you really want it, and then you can make a bunch of them for whatever project you're working on, if it needs a bunch. Some things, like a cross, as we mentioned, just need one right in the middle of the cross, and it's a good place to use these sample pieces if you're happy with them. Now, this first one we did out of the square plate, I really kind of like this idea. I think I might like it better if I used a larger set tool and left a sharper V-notch in the middle. But in any case, I think it's usable the way it is. And you just use that as a decorative element around a rivet head, usually. Not always. You could do something different with it. Use your imagination. Now the second one, out of the round bar is a little bit funky. I think it's probably okay, depending on what you're going to put it on. But I think it could use some refinement of some sort. I'm not sure what. Maybe a smaller set tool and doing 6 of them around the round bar instead of 4 and ending up with a square. Or maybe even take smaller bites, or maybe one that doesn't have a 90-degree corner. Maybe one that comes to a sharper point and do 8 segments around. Just something to try out. And I think we will try that at some point because I think that's got some real potential. But I think my favorite one is this square one. I just really like the way it came out. I like the way it curled up like that. I just decided to leave that. And I think that's got some real character to it. I'm not real sure where we would use this, but somewhere I think it'll get used. This could even be the top for a hook or something like that. And instead of the rivet, you could use a lag bolt through this and through the hook and into the wall to hold the whole thing onto the wall. Might be very interesting that way. Lots of things you could probably do with this. And there are probably hundreds of different approaches you can take to making rosettes of this nature. Lots of different starting points. I've seen them out of sheet metal that are then dished and domed and little arms curled up and things like that. Lots of things you can do. And we're going to look at some more of these in the future, probably not just back to back, but I think something else that I think would be good to explore from time to time. Good way to use your imagination. Good way to use up little tiny bits of material. Like I say, these were just little square cutoffs, or in this case, a round cutoff. I do hope you found the video interesting. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button down there. Feel free to stick around, watch a few of the other videos, share the videos with your friends. But then by all means, make time in your day to get out to your shop. Make something, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next one.